All right, I am live here with Queen Wheeler. If you joined the Perimenopausal in a Pandemic Talks, Queen and I talked, oh my God, it seems like a lifetime ago already, but I
And
think it was a week ago Monday.
it was probably it was a lifetime ago because a week ago Monday was a lifetime ago. Yeah.
And so we've been talking since then. And one of the things we talked about was just um, having some hard conversations together. We're all going through a lot right now, and we see a lot of people having some really difficult conversations. And so we wanted to take this opportunity to do some of that live.
Like real life. Real life. And let me tell your platform this. We were discussing this right before we got on. Initially, when we talked about having this, I had a plan. We had things that we wanted to share, and I had a plan. And right now, that's what I'm finding that people are trying to do. They're trying to come up with a plan in order to have a conversation because these are hard conversations. And when you come up with a plan, you go in with intentions of I want this person to know this and I want them to know that, and right, which is pretty much what I would have preferred to do. I would have preferred to have an outline and do that, even though I would have gone off the outline. Um, but that's what people are doing in their real life, especially white women. Like they are trying to come up with a plan. Like, how do I have this conversation without offending someone, without being called a racist, without, and so I keep hearing that from white women, trying to come up with a plan. So here we are, we don't have a plan. We're just going to have this hard conversation with each other because that's the way everyone else is having to do it and needing to do it.
Yeah.
Right?
And
It's
then,
just to do it.
and part of having that plan is to have control, which we both like to have control.
Yeah.
But one thing I know when I plan for conversations, I don't listen
Mm.
because I'm trying to make sure we get to that point.
Mm-hmm.
And so then I've missed what's listening 70%. Like I've missed 70% of the conversation.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially if it's going to be a hard one. Because I think what we do is we brace ourselves for everything we think the other person, how they're going to take it or what their response might be. And when we're talking about racism and everything around racism, and let me just say this up front. There's an analogy that I finally got to a couple days ago after having all of these hard conversations over and over and over and over again. And I've been having these conversations daily, whether it be in my work or whether it be just other people in the community or people calling me or what have you. And finally, I said, we continue to grapple over this question about, are you racist? And I'm like, I think that's one of the most unprofitable things for us right now is to discuss the question, are you racist? Like, it doesn't even make sense. We know that we were born into a country that was founded on racism, that was founded on thievery, that was founded on violence, right? Founded on violence. So asking, am I racist or do I have racist behavior? It's like all of us jumping into this pool and people saying, but I'm not wet. Am I wet? I'm not wet. We're all in this same pool called America. We know how it was founded. We know how they got down in order to take the land, right? to make it their own. We know how they got down. We know about slavery. We know about how the laws were created. And if you don't know, that's my number one thing that I've been advising people to do, is go educate yourself on these things and read the works of Black scholars, watch Black documentaries, because remember where we are, which means if you're watching the History Channel, if you're reciting from your history book, hello, who wrote that? Like the writer gets to control the narrative. Right. The writer gets to control the narrative. So people are even arguing with each other over bogus information, right? Just to be able to hold on to, I'm not racist. Look, we're all wet, period. So let's like get past that part. Now, so instead of asking yourself, am I racist? Just say, okay, I'm wet. Because I was telling a friend yesterday, it seems like everybody's taking it so personal, right? I'm not a racist. Taking it personal. Don't take it personal. Just take ownership of it, right? Because you're not saying, it's not about, am I racist or do I have any racism in me or any racist behaviors? Because remember, we're all in the pool. So you wet. It's just a matter of how wet are you? And you're not as wet as your great, 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 great grandfather, but nevertheless, you sure as hell ain't dry. So if we can get that, like if we could just start from there, then I think it'll be easier to have these conversations. But right now we're arguing about whether we wet or not. And that just like, that's senseless. It's going nowhere. It's going nowhere. So I just wanted to get that little bit out the way. What you
think part of that is because we've equated racism with evil. And we like to think of ourselves as good, and we don't like to look at our dark side at all. Right. So if you point out to me a place, something I said that was racist, in my head, that's like Queen thinks I'm evil. She thinks I'm a bad person and she doesn't like me, instead of she's just shining a light on my hair's still wet right there. Mm-hmm. And she just pointed it out for me so I can look at that and how I can dry it out.
Right. And the one thing that I really don't care for is needing to be the one to say your hair is wet right there. Right. And so I guess that's one of the reasons why I'm like, can we all just agree? We are in this pool. We all know the history. So why are we arguing about that? Yes, you're wet. How wet are you? You're not as wet as your great, right? You're not as wet as the actual slave owner, right? The owner of the enslaved. You're not that wet, but you're not dry. And nobody's saying you did it on purpose. We're all in this pool. We've all had the same marketing messages. We've all had the same education, right? We're all born into the system that was already going before we even got here. So it's not a matter of if you're wet, it's how wet. And so the first thing to do is just acknowledge, okay, I'm in the pool. And then, okay, how do I get out? Okay, how wet am I? How do I dry off? And then how do I put on new clothes? Right? How do I put on dry clothes better suited for today, for where we are today? And so having to point out, I mean, and I know a lot of Black people are just tired. I keep hearing the things that, and I've said it too. I have said it, like, not this year, because this 2020 Queen is different than 2016 Queen when this stuff was going on. 2016 Queen used to be saying, like, look, stop asking me how to fix it. Like, y'all the ones got to stop asking me. Like, I got tired of, well, what do you want us to do? Well, what do you want? Well, what do you, like, we're tired of that. Can we grieve our loss now? Like, and now you want us to. So it was more of that feeling, right? And so I think part of the hard conversation is me being able to express how it affects me, but my white counterpart, you, Amy, being able to express how it affects you, like real, meaning what are you learning about yourself, right? That has the wet parts of yourself, right?
Mhm.
Now that you know you're wet, what are you like, what was that process for you? Because I have a process too, because remember, we're all in this pool. And so in 2016, I realized that I was wet. Like, just because I'm Black does not mean that I haven't picked up some of the same behaviors and some of the same attitudes towards my own people as anybody else, because I grew up in this system as well, with the same education, the same movies, the same commercials, the same marketing, right? The same systems. And so that's what we're going to talk about today, is like from our own experience of being wet. And me being Black, I'm still wet, and I have had to wake up to the things that I would allow others to say around me, and I laugh too, right? The things that I've allowed myself to think and believe about Black people as if I'm not, right? Because then it goes into classism and stuff. You know, when you get to a certain economic status, you can afford to pretend like you're white sometimes. Like, that's just like, you have the white privilege. Like, you know, you're not white, but you have the privilege to look away from some things, or pretend like you don't know some things. And I think many Black people are in that situation where, as they have climbed the education ladder, as they have climbed the social ladder, as they have climbed the economic ladder, they have been even more immersed in the pool and began to look at their own people, like I did, look at their own people and say some of the same things that we are offended by when it comes out of white people's mouths.
Mhm. And for the white women, if you can't relate to this, it's what we do at work when we pretend like we're one of the guys, or when some of the offensive things they say, we just laugh at it and pretend like it doesn't bother us. It's the same thing, which I'm sure you've done as a woman, but you've done it in two ways.
Yeah, exactly. We got we had the double whammy, you know, being female and Black, the double whammy, and the more other things that you add on that, you know, the however, the being Black part is usually has you at the bottom. Everything else is up on top of that, right?
Yeah.
Everybody else's rights get pushed faster and further. And it seems that Black people are consistently, or have traditionally consistently been told to wait your turn. And people just jump in front of the line. So it seems like we're always in the same spot or getting pushed back. But
Well, one of the things, I don't know if you even want to go there, but I think we're at the point of this horrible period where we're seeing that now, where some of those people are speaking out on video. And white people are using that to support their views of what's happening in the world.
what are you talking about?
Candace Owens.
Oh, girl. Man. Well, wait a minute. First of all, I didn't see the video, but
Okay.
I saw listen, nobody, this is why white people like our culture, because can't nobody put out a meme like Black people. Can't nobody joke on something like Black people. So all I saw was the meme where somebody was saying, I should pull it up. They had on there that, like, Candace would have been the one who told them where Martin Luther King was to shoot him. You know, Candace would have been the one in the audience, you know, with a gun for mouth. I can't remember all the stuff, but you know, one of the things that I think is very misunderstood, and I would suggest, if you can, which I know you can, because if you're watching this, then you can. If you go follow Dr. Joy DeGruy, if you read her book, PTSS, Post-Traumatic Slave Syndrome, take her course, which I have, you will realize that what you see in her is all part of the symptoms from the trauma of slavery. And I've been seeing that a lot in my people is the symptoms from the trauma of slavery, the symptoms that would have you say things like, Black people, stop looting and burning down your own stuff. Stop looting, stop stealing and burning. It doesn't make any sense. You're burning down your own stuff. Well, first of all, Black people make up 13.5%, I believe, of the population. White people, 76.5, I think. Well, yeah, 76.5. We make up 13.4. So you mean to tell me all those businesses, now, mind you, 13.4, we ain't even talked about how many they have in prison that they didn't put in prison, right? So you got to take them out. So you mean to tell me you really believe that all of those businesses are owned by Black people? Really? And we're sitting here talking about racism, but you believe that all those businesses are owned by Black people? Do you really believe that all of the people that were looting were Black people? Remember, we're 13.4%, and there was a whole lot of people out there. So out of all those people, you think all of us were congregated in these areas and doing all of the looting? It's amazing that even when we see pictures, even when we see the news and we see white faces, we still will say, Black people, stop, right? That's us, because we're in the water too. And we've been conditioned to look at ourselves that way. So we don't even see the white woman walking out the store with bags and all of that. We don't even see her. All we see is Black, and we say, Black people, stop looting, right? But we didn't say that when all of these big corporations just looted that stimulus money. They kicked in the doors, they knocked out the windows, they went in there and got that money and kept the money from the small Black businesses. Now that was some serious looting. Like they were gangster style on that, right? However, we don't mention that. We even say Black people. Why? Because we are in this pool. We as well have been conditioned. We've been taught to look at our people that way. We've been taught to look at our men that way. We've been taught to think the worst of ourselves immediately, even when we know that it's not true, even when we know that it doesn't even make sense.
Yeah, did you see the video? I don't know if you saw this. Prince EA had a video with two dolls, and he had little kids looking at the dolls, and they asked questions like, which is the pretty doll, which is the bad doll, which is the nice doll. And it was Black children, and for the pretty doll, they picked the white baby. For the bad doll, they picked the Black baby. And at the end, they even asked, like, which baby looks like you? And they pointed to the Black baby. It was just heartbreaking. It's just showing they're in the pool. They're already wet.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why, I know you read a post that I posted day before yesterday, and I'll read it in case any of your listeners or your people haven't seen it. But it says, and I have to read it, so sorry, I'm gonna have to look down. No, I'll put it up here, so I'll be looking down and looking like I'm being rude. All right, it says myth. It takes all of us working together. Remember, we're talking about myths. So the myth is it takes all of us working together. According to census.gov, here's the breakdown. White, 76.5%. Black, 13.4%. According to the census of 1861, here's the breakdown. White, 85.8%. Black free, 1.5%. Black enslaved, 12.7%. Truth, it takes whites working together to abolish the system of racism. If you want to see change and you are white, you actually have the power to be the change. The sexy propaganda used to convince Black people that they hold any power in this at all is just another way of keeping them blaming each other and bickering among themselves and internalizing a problem that is not theirs. The reason for Black people being a part of solving a problem that is not theirs is simple. We want to breathe, and we can only do that if you remove that knee of racism from our necks. We have internalized this poison that we did not create, right? But we've internalized it. And the one thing that I am really concerned about is that I recognize that, right? I recognize that, and I know that my community needs to heal from that. However, as white women are looking to Black women or Black people saying, what is it that you want? What is it that we can do? What is it that you want us to do? My concern is they are not, white people in general, not all, but enough for me to say in general, are not taking ownership, right? And them turning to Black people saying, well, what is it that you want? What is it? It's just another way to push off the ownership of the problem. I just told you 76.5% are white, which and 13.4% are Black, many which are in prison, and that's a whole nother subject right there, right? So do you really mean to tell me that you can listen to those statistics and you believe that change is going to come from you looking at less than 13% saying, what do you want? When the truth is, if the 76.5% just looked at and took ownership of, right? Took ownership of racism, they themselves could change it without us ever saying a word. Because they didn't need us to say a word to put it in place. They haven't needed us to say a word to keep it in place. White people do not need us to say a word to abolish it. 76, if this was a company, that wouldn't even make sense to us. A person with 76.5% of the shares of a company would never look to one person with 13.4 shares of a company and say, how do we change this company? They would just change it because they know that it's just about a decision. They own 76% of the shares. So it's just a decision, a choice. And only when it comes to racism, does that make sense at all that people look at 13.4% of the ownership of the company and say, how do we change it? What are we doing, right? So I think that there is enough information. And if you're confused about the information, then I think there's enough resources available for you to study up, for you to understand. Again, watch, if you like, watch the Black documentaries, read Black authors, especially from this, who wrote about the 60s and things like that. We have amazing movies have come out over the last several years, right? Really showing the life of Black people, but specifically documentaries. I would watch 13th. I always tell people, watch 13th. 13th is such a good one to watch. Just Mercy, which this is their logo. This is from the museum in Montgomery, Justice Museum in Montgomery, and this is their logo. And which I, again, go to the museums, go to Montgomery, go to the lynching museum. Oh my God, that one is, oh my goodness. And down by New Orleans, Whitney Plantation. Oh my goodness, you're talking about an education. They will educate you because they tell everything from the enslaved point of view. So there's so much information out there for white people to educate themselves and sit with it and look at it. We know you didn't do it. Okay. We know that you yourself didn't do it. Okay. We over that argument. Okay. We over that argument. You're still in the pool. So just take ownership of it. And this is the thing.
I was going to say one place that I think people get confused is sometimes there's an issue where there's a social justice initiative going on, and we'll have really strong, knowledgeable Black leaders, and white people will come in and want to take over. So one thing I want to clarify, if I understand correctly, is there are a lot of Black leaders who have deep, deep knowledge of systemic racism. And so we can use that knowledge. Like, we don't need to try to like figure out what systemic racism is, because that work's been done, but I don't need to ask Queen about that. Like, there's books I can read. I can go pull the books of those experts that have done that research and read, and then understand from that what actions I can take to change it.
Because you're not going to be taking the actions over here with me, because I don't have the power.
Yep.
Right? So why would you spend your time over here asking me questions of what you want or what? And it almost feels like it's starting to become a justification for people to not really do anything, because you get that, you scratch that itch of feeling badly because you asked a Black woman something. Mm-hmm. So that means you tried. I tried to understand. I tried to help, right? When that is not going to take a knee off of George Floyd's neck. You know how to do that because you know yourself. You know your community. You know where the power is. And that's where you need to be speaking. That's where you need to be working. If it was over here in the 13%, do you not think we would have been and handled it by now? Like, do you really think that if we had the power to do so, that we wouldn't have turned this joint out by now? Like, we would have been to turn this around.
Yep.
So do your work. Stop pretending like you're working by coming over here asking questions, and actually do your work, right? Just do your work. And the thing is, ain't nobody mad at you. We just want things done. And again, what I posted, it is sexy propaganda to make Black people believe that they have power in this, so that when it doesn't change, you blame the Black people. Well, it's y'all's fault because y'all start rioting. Y'all were doing good until then. And so now don't nobody, right? So you started rioting, and that's why it's not done. Really? So you mean all these other years that we haven't been rioting? Why? What was the purpose? Like, what was going on then? Right? What was going on then?
You weren't protesting right, that magical right, whatever that is.
Yes. I'm like, come on. That is such sexy propaganda to brainwash Black people into believing that they hold the power to change. When 13.4%. Hello. 76.5%. Where is the power? The power is in the white community. They can make a choice at any time, and overthrow anything.
And hi to Brianna and Preston and April. Thanks for joining us. I think to your point, if you want to ask questions, where you ask questions is where you are every day. So at work, where you're doing business, asking people questions like that. I'm embarrassed that I haven't done that before. And that was one of the things I did. I'm reaching out to companies that I'm doing business with, saying, help me understand what your board of directors look like. Help me understand what your leadership team looks like. And if it's not what I would expect, what are you doing about it? And it was freaking eye-opening. I'm like, even just as a woman, I shouldn't have been doing business with these companies. But, you know, I'm getting answers like, I don't see color. I'm like, oh, all right. Or who is this lady and how much business does she do with us?
Right.
They accidentally sent me the internal emails before they answered my question.
Yeah, because it's going to come down to money. It's power, it's money and power. And we don't have either. 13.4%. For whatever reason, many, well, it's not for whatever reason. I know what reason it's for, because it goes into the same pool of racism, right? You look at the NFL stars or the basketball players, right? The performers, those who entertain you. And you say, oh, they have money, which means all Black people have money, right? Or they made it, which means all Black people, was it 13.4%? I'm gonna keep on saying that because, and we still haven't broken down how many are in prison. And if we get into that, then like that's a whole nother, because let me tell you something. I was thinking about that. I told you 13.4% are Black. In 1861, 1.5% Black free, 12.7% Black enslaved. One of the things that made me think about and you see how I did that research so that I could figure out, what do we really need to do? Where is the change? Where can the change really happen? So I did the research. However, when I looked at the numbers, our numbers haven't changed. So then I start thinking about that, and I'm like, okay, if it's true that Black people are always kicking out babies and sitting on welfare,
where are they?
True, why the hell ain't our numbers then increased? That might have something to do with population control by imprisoning the Black men. Like, I hadn't even thought about that before. I'm like, okay, how are our numbers staying so suppressed? So we need to start looking, us as Black people need to start really looking at what the real is so that we understand. And white people need to start looking at what the real is, not the fantasy or high ideas of what we think should be, but where are we, so that we can really map out where we're going and start telling the truth about things. Right? Start telling the truth about things. So I think when, like, the questions asked need to be asked to people who have the power to do something about the answer. Right? So that's where the questions need to be asked. Just like you said, you wrote all your companies you do business with. The questions that.
And then I follow through and move my money elsewhere.
Right. Exactly.
And that's where we stop. So I'm going to call myself out on that. When a few years ago, my kids and I went to Standing Rock, and that was our first experience protesting next to Black and brown people. And so we saw the difference, right? I mean, there was a huge difference if you look at what the police looked like at Standing Rock versus the Women's March, like night and day, right? Mm-hmm. And afterwards, I came home and I was banking at Chase, and I was like, that banking at Chase doesn't match my values, my ethics. I need to change it. And then I got busy, and it takes time, and it was inconvenient, and I didn't do it. And it impacted me when this PPP stuff came up, because guess what? Chase doesn't really care about me. If I would have changed it to a bank that matched my values, it would have benefited me during this time. So not only just being in sync with my values, it would have benefited me too.
You know, I got into a Facebook tiff with my brother because he posted a meme or whatever. It was all words. I don't know if all words are memes or whatever, but he posted, and you know this is a pet peeve of mine. So listen, especially all y'all Black people, please listen to this. And white people too, because you stop feeding into it. It's part of the trauma, the symptoms of the trauma of racism, the trauma of slavery. So I started seeing this meme going around saying, I will never let I'm paraphrasing, I will never let racism make me forget how dope my white friends are, like how great my white friends are. So I told my brother, like, I don't see none of your white friends posting that about you. Like, why are you saying, you know, what is the purpose of this? Mm-hmm. And he's like, well, we need we should be nice to our allies and all of that kind of stuff. And I didn't say which brother, even though I only have two. So dang, people I'm sorry. I probably shouldn't have said, I probably should have just said some guy, right? I probably should have just said some guy did it. Too late, but I didn't say his name, but okay. But anyway, I was asking, like, I don't see anybody posting that about you. Do you have you asked yourself why you say that? Why you feel a need to post that was what was behind my challenge. Because oftentimes we don't look at why we do things, and we don't understand what's connected to racism versus what's just being nice, or what's just going on about your day or whatever, or just habit, what's connected to racism. And the way that you can, and your viewers and many people might say, well, what's wrong with that? What's wrong with, saying that you love your white friends or whatever? This was how I test that. If it's about you not allowing racism to change how you feel about people, then why am I not seeing memes that say, I will never let racism make me believe that all Black people are thugs? Or I will never let racism make me forget that my Black brothers' lives matter. He didn't post anything like that. He said, I won't let racism make me forget about the white people.
Which was your whole point of not getting distracted. What is the goal right now? The goal right now is breaking down systemic racism, and anything else we're posting is distracting from that. I need to call out, thanks Preston for reminding people to share this video, and Ardith, thanks for sharing it. And Brianna, you're right, we aren't good about holding white people accountable. And she pointed out that you were talking about a brother from another mother when you were talking about that meme.
Oh, you know what? Actually, you know what? I'm gonna leave it at that. That way my brother's safe. I'll go ahead, and because that one too. All of them, anybody. It doesn't matter who you are. But seriously, for my Black community, I would advise and strongly encourage you to read Dr. Joy DeGroove's work. Like this.
And I did post that in the comments, the name of it.
Yes, post-traumatic slave syndrome, because you would probably be surprised at the things that we have carried down from that, behaviors that we have carried on, and we've never stopped to ask ourselves, why are we doing this? Does it still serve us? at all. And in many ways, it feeds into racism. It makes white people feel good. White people who are behaving like racist feel good about themselves.
And actually, Roosevelt just pointed that out. He said, your brother also posted 30 other posts about racism that were ignored to focus on the one. And that is true. That wasn't your brother. That was me too.
Wait. How he gonna get on here and say that though? He said that on the post. He said, he told me, look at the other 500 instead of the one that got your attention. But that's the point. That's the one that gets people's attention. You are distracting, my brother. So
and I did that too. So your point about thinking about what you're posting and why is especially important for white people. Am I posting this because it makes me feel good and not feel as bad about the racism, the cops kneeling and people holding hands and praying with them? Am I posting it to make it about me? Like, oh, Queen, I feel horrible about what you've been through. Like, I'm centering it around me.
That's a lot. I've
you.
been seeing that so much, where it becomes about the person who is, oh, I feel so bad. This is horrible. And I always teach my kids, and I, what? You're wet. You're trying to justify why you're not wet to everybody else, right? Instead of just taking ownership. Don't take it so personal.
Yeah. Don't
take it so personal. Now, if we want to look at some of the studies that have come out that we accept for other cultures, but we don't accept for Black people, such as the studies that have come out around the Jewish experience of the Holocaust and their survivors and their children who weren't in the Holocaust. And they did a study to see that trauma passes through to those children, right, who were not actually there, but they still suffer the effects of it. Now, we will accept that truth, right? And nobody touches the Jewish Holocaust. Like, that is a sacred cow. And
well, there's people that do, but
right.
Yes.
Yeah. But those are the same people that's killing Black people. So I ain't talking about them. But for the most part, that's a sacred cow. Nobody touches it, as it should be, right? It should be a sacred cow. But you had a Holocaust so much greater than that lasted many times over longer than that. And yet we act as if we should be over it. There are no effects left. Why can't you people just get on with it? Why can't you just, right? We can accept the scientific study of how the trauma has passed down to Jewish descendants, but we can't quite see why Black people would fear the way that they fear the cops, the way that they fear the cops, right? Dislike the system the way they. Now, first of all, yes, that has been, the trauma has been passed down, but we are constantly re-traumatized by the system staying in place. We're re-traumatized constantly. Do you know what it does to our psyche to watch that shit on TV? Do you know what that does to our psyche?
No, but I see it.
I'm like, what the? Like, I'm about to start cussing. I'm gonna try not to though. But what that does to the psyche, the re-traumatization that is each time we see somebody who looks like us, who could be our dad, our uncle, our brother, our sister, our mother, be treated like a dog. I can't even say a dog in the street, because let an animal be hurt. Oh my God, I know we would have a million white woman march.
Yeah.
Let me hurt an animal. All kind of laws would be passed by now, like within probably 48 hours. There would be let me hurt an animal. So to know that, for me to know that, and the thing is you shouldn't be hurting animals, right? Like you shouldn't be hurting animals. You should get it if you hurting animals. But imagine if we know that, and yet we can be killed in the middle of the street, which means what? We are thought of as less than the animals. That's some bullshit, right? That's just.
Preston is pointing out after they kill us, leaving us laying in the streets 12 hours plus.
There you go. I think we froze a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is. I was talking to someone today. I don't know if the voice is still carrying, Amy. Do you know?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. It looks like the live actually froze though.
Can you hear?
I can hear you.
See if anyone comments. I'm seeing if anyone comments.
Oh, okay.
That's strange. No one's commenting, so maybe they can't. I've never had this happen.
Huh.
Oh, we're fine.
Oh, okay.
Comments.
Oh, okay. All right. I don't know. Yeah, it froze. But man, dang, that just made me forget what I was talking about. But
we were talking about people lying in the street for hours.
Yeah, and us being less than animals, which is like that is. Oh yeah, what I was talking to someone today, and I was telling her, I said, you know, when you think about that, Amy, when you think about it, it's a wonder that Black people aren't batshit crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Because of the conditions that we have lived in thus far. Dealing with racism, along with everything that's been passed down to us because of the effects of racism, right? It's no wonder we aren't really burning stuff down and really out in the streets acting crazy. It's no wonder. So when I look at my people, I'm like, Lord, what a strong people, what a patient people, what a compassionate people.
Yeah.
Right? What a strong-minded people to be able to endure such for so long. And all you got was maybe a JCPenney's got broke into or something, you know, be happy with it, right? A couple cars burned, okay.
Yep.
Okay, because ain't none of that any worse than after a hockey game.
Right.
Or a baseball game or whatever games, you know, when they be out in the street catching cars on fire and all that kind of stuff, and you don't see a Black face around. Right? So yeah, it's disheartening, to say the least. However, I do believe that something has changed this time. I do. And I am hopeful. And so what I am hopeful for is that 76.5% speaking in the right places, the places of power in which something can actually be done. Changing enough of the 76.5% mindset in order for things to get done. And I see, you know, I see it. I see them marching in the streets. I see them speaking out. I see white, I believe that white women are going to be at the forefront. I think that they are key in this. And I see them standing up and coming out and all of that. And so my hope is that they will keep the momentum. They will keep the momentum and that they will follow through, because they don't need the 13.4% to do it. Not at all. They could change it quickly and they can turn it around quickly. And so that's what I'm hoping for.
And Roosevelt was talking about something that I was thinking about today too. And that was, people that'll post about pets before any injustice against Black people, and they get offended when you call them out. But what I was thinking about today is just looking at my Facebook page. Again, it's all about being intentional. And what does my Facebook page and what I'm posting tell about me? If I'm looking at it from someone else's point of view, and I did it because I was going to have a conversation with someone else that I didn't agree with, and I wanted to look at his Facebook page and say, what do I think about this person? What do I think is important to him based on what he posted? And I was going to share that with him because I don't think it's in alignment with who he thinks he is. So I looked at my own that way too, to say, is this representing me the way I want to represent myself and what's important to me and what I think is more important than something else? And I think it's a good thing to ask other people to look at your page and see, if you look at what I'm doing, what do you think is important? What do you think I care about? And just see if it's in sync with what you believe. I think that's a good thing for all of us to do.
And even more so than that, how about your life?
Yeah.
Like when you look at my life, when you look at my relationships, when you look at my conversations, when you look at how I spend my money, when you look at how I vote, when you look at what does it say to you about me? Does it align with the talk that I talk? Right.
And I was saying, I can't be, this is my values, but I can't be inconvenienced for my values, because it's inconvenient to go shop locally to do this versus Amazon. It's inconvenient to change my bank. So my behavior was saying, and is saying, it's too inconvenient to live my values. So that's something we have to think about.
This is another thing from that meme that came out with when my brother was saying that it's important to have allies and things like that. And I said, if someone is truly an ally, you not patting them on the back will not turn them into an anti, right? And one of the things about when people start stepping up and speaking up, what I was trying to convey to him was they do that because they are fighting for their own values and how they see themselves. They're not necessarily fighting for you. So I don't get it twisted. I know that most of the white people out there fighting are not fighting for me and mine, but they are fighting to be in alignment with their values. They're saying that these are my values and I will fight for my values. This is who I am. This is who I believe myself to be, and I'm going to fight for that. Because if you don't have that, what do you have? So that's what they're fighting for. They're fighting for their values. They're fighting for their beliefs. They're fighting for who they believe themselves to be. And if they believe themselves to be somebody who treats everyone equally, if they believe themselves to be somebody who love everybody, then that's what they're out marching for. They're proving to themselves, this is who I am. This is what I stand for. They're not necessarily fighting for me or for George Floyd, right? However, I don't care what reason they're fighting for. I just want them to, I want them to do it, right? I want them to do what they need to do to make the change.
So the comment we have is, but people need encouragement. That's why they go to church weekly, to stay encouraged in the fight.
But people need encouragement. That's why they. So, okay, Well, I would say, I would say to that, because I know people do need encouragement, right? So I would say, if you need encouragement, look to your 5 closest friends and just ask them to encourage you. Your 5 closest friends, the people who you spend the most time with, the people who you're in most conversation with on a regular basis, whether they be family or friends, and just share with them, look, I am in the process of making these changes in my life. I'm in the process of fighting for my values. I'm in the process of realigning or what have you, and I need encouragement. Could you please be one of those people who help keep me encouraged?
And Justin pointed out he tries not to let his need for encouragement be a further burden on the people I call myself an ally of.
Thank you.
Yeah, I actually, and some of them might be on, but there's a group of us that have come together, a group of white allies, so that I can try to do more of my venting with them versus further burdening you, or, you know, just asking those questions and things too. And I asked them to call me out here if there were things I said or if we were tiptoeing around anything, to jump in and point out that we're tiptoeing around an issue.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Please do. You know, I like to be called out on stuff because, you know, well, maybe I shouldn't say that because I named a couple of my family members on there and they will, you know, they'll start stuff with me just so I get riled up and start talking. But yeah, I think that's the responsible thing to do. The responsible thing to do is to set your life, you know, I tell my clients all the time, you set your life up to support you for what you need. And so if you need cheerleaders, you make sure that you put them in place and that they know how you need them to cheer for you and when you need them to step in to cheer for you. That's very important for everybody.
So I love, Justin has an analogy I love. We didn't constantly call the Brits in World War II and say thanks for everything. We fought on our own fronts. But then Roosevelt has another, you know, so separation is the answer instead of unifying to be on the same page. Wrong answer. And I know we're not saying separation either because you and I are talking about that.
Who said that?
You know who said that.
Nobody said anything about separation.
And Roosevelt, or Justin, Roosevelt wasn't talking about you. I think if anything, it would be to us.
Yeah, he said it to me specifically. He said it to me specifically. And please let me be clear. We're not together, therefore separation is not even a conversation. Okay? If we were together, we wouldn't be having this conversation. We wouldn't have people out there marching in the streets. So we talk about unity as if it's something that has already been had and we're losing it. We are still in the fight to get to unity. So to speak as if we're being divisive, as if we are united, doesn't make sense to me. If we were united, this wouldn't be a discussion. Now, the false unity that we have allowed ourselves to be lollified by and rocked to sleep by has gotten us where we are today, a prolonged wait on justice. Because every time we get a false sense of unity, okay, they've calmed down now, we're good until the next time, right? And then we get a false sense of unity again. Okay, they've calmed down now until next time. And I'm hoping that this time we look up and say, oh no, that's enough. We want real unity. We want real togetherness.
Well, and can I call out something? So to me, that false sense of unity that I'm seeing happening right now is the kneeling. So people all of a sudden are kneeling before Colin Kaepernick, and also agreeing to take down the statues. So kneeling and taking down statues cost me nothing. That is the fake unity to prevent you from really dismantling systemic racism.
Girl, wait a minute. Oh my goodness. I'm about to hyperventilate. Hold on. Because hold up. For real. My blood pressure going, hold up. Okay. Let's talk about the kneeling. Kaepernick kneeled back in 2016, 17, when all of this was happening back then. You shut him down. You told him he shouldn't kneel. You fired him, took his livelihood away, threatened anybody else who would dare to kneel behind him. That was 2016. You shut it down. 2020, a police officer kneels on George Floyd's neck until he no longer breathes, and then kneeled even longer. So now that's what the knee symbolizes, and that's what you want to give us? And we say, oh, look, they're so, no. Kaepernick is over. That was 2016. The knee means something totally different today, especially the knee dressed in blue. And you're going to put, that's what you're going to show me? Hell no. That is the most ridiculous. I mean, who's PR? Like, who is the PR person? I don't get it. Did nobody connect the two? You're kneeling, and that's how we watched that video. Somebody kneeling on George Floyd's neck for over 8 minutes, 3 minutes past when he was dead. Come on. I can't make sense of that. I don't know. I don't know if everybody else think, well, obviously I've been seeing people clapping. Oh, look, we're doing such a good job. Oh, look, the cops are kneeling. And again, this false sense of wins. And I'm not saying that there aren't good things happening as far as people coming together, but let's not have a false sense. Let's tell the truth about things. Right? Let's look at things truthfully.
Next time we'll have to have a three person and add Roosevelt.
No, we won't. That is not gonna happen.
It's my
That's not gonna happen. We can add the other one maybe, but we're not gonna add him. But you know, these are hard conversations, and these are things that, you know, a lot of people are scared to speak up about because they will become an argument. My thing is, I don't mind talking about how I feel and how I experience anything, right? And I don't think anybody should mind speaking about how they experience something, keyword experience, and how they understand something, meaning they first must read something to understand. They first must listen to something to understand. They first must do some type of work to understand. And right now we have people just talking because, you know, they talk only off of the surface of what they know, and it creates arguments. And people aren't even talking to each other. They're talking across each other, because they haven't even established the base off of where we're starting with the conversation. For instance, when we talk about police, and that's a big argument over all cops are not bad, some cops are bad, cops are, all of that stuff, right? Talking across each other. When to understand where many Black people come from, not all, can't speak for all, but from where many Black people come from, when they're saying cops are bad, they're saying the system is bad, because they're saying, go back and look, go back and read, go back and study how policing came about and what its purpose was, and who were the police officers who took off white robes and white cone hats. The system. So if a system is corrupt, I don't care how many good people you put in it. They have to comply to the system. So
yeah, so back in my corporate America days, I was the operational effective person, and we always said, if you have a broken process, the broken process will kill good people every time.
oh, I like that.
Broken system, same thing. You could throw 100 people, your process is broken.
I like that, Amy. Yeah, that's good. That's a good one right there. I like that. Yeah. So we didn't even get into the myth, did we?
No.
We didn't even get into the beginning of the myth. But I do, like, I want to continue these hard conversations and really get into the myths that are holding this racist system together, because we're going to have to listen to me. I said Roosevelt should be really happy that I said this. I said we got to take ownership, when the truth is the power has to take ownership. So that's going to be in the 76%. We can take ownership all we want, but 13.4% is not going to be enough to change anything. So we can help, we can assist, we can support, and I'm happy to do that. I'm happy to do that, but I'm not going to how can I say this the nicest way? Because that was going to be crude how I was going to say it. I'm not going to fantasize myself into believing that 13.4% can make the change that's needed. I'm not going to fantasize about that. I will support the 76.5 any way I can so that they can make the change, because they can do it in a moment. Just wake up tomorrow and decide, and it'll happen.
Justin, what did you want us to repeat? Sorry, I missed that. There was something we said. You can always listen to this again. This will be out there. I can't think of the word. This is our legacy. All right.
Yeah. All right. So I don't know. I guess we'll be doing another one where we actually talk about the myths. and just so you guys know, some of the things that we're going to talk about is the myth of meritocracy. That's a good one. The myth of manifest destiny. Oh my goodness. Yeah, that's going to be a good one. The myth of white racelessness. Myth of monoculture. Myth of white moral elevation. And I think that's it, right? Yeah, I think that's it. But those by themselves, those are like heavy hitters. Like that's a lot to, like, there's so many places and so many things we can talk about within those. And again, I am talking about, we're talking about these things from an experiential point of view. So me as a Black person had to realize in 2016, had to really look at myself and look at how wet was I, right? How had I taken on these ways of thinking that has caused me myself to look at my people in a derogatory way, which in order to separate from my people, I have to separate from myself. And that's the one thing that I realized, right? So I had to take the journey back home to myself, which then reconnected me to my Blackness, to my community, so that I'm not saying things like, why are all Black people rioting or looting or what have you? And I'm not saying things like, oh, what's her name? That is oh, that must be a Black, all that kind of stuff, right? I'm not looking at the male with his pants sagging going, now he know he needs to, because the truth is, Amy, if we were in the majority, then your name would sound funny.
When I'm in India, my name sounds funny.
Exactly. If we were the majority, the way you dress would be the thing that we're saying, oh my goodness, what's wrong, right? Mm-hmm. I'd be looking at your hair. So, and hopefully, if we were in the majority, and I truly believe that this statement is true, if we were in the majority, that wouldn't happen. I believe that it wouldn't happen because we are a soulful, spiritual people. And that's why we have been able to have patience and compassion, even under threat, under abuse, and even at the threat of murder. We have had compassion. We've been a praying people. We've been even probably to our own demise, right? But we're soulful, we're spiritual people. That's who we are, right? We're lovers. We are musicians. We are poets, right? We're engineers. We're so creative. That's why everybody loves our culture. Think about it. When you talk about anybody else's culture, you say stuff like, oh, I want to get some Indian food, or I want to get some Mexican food, or I want to, get some that. When you talk about anything Black, they say, oh, I want some soul food. Or, ooh, that's soul music. Or, ooh, that girl got soul. Anything that has to do with our culture, everybody around the world talk about it as soul. There's a reason for that. That's because we're a soulful, spiritual culture. That's why people love to groove to our songs, make love to our poems, because that's just, you see, look at that. It was coming out of me. I think I rhymed, but it is, but truly, like, we are magnificent, magical creatures. We are. Yet we've forgotten that because we're in the pool too. So we've forgotten that. And I want it for myself, and I want for my community to remember that, to start drying up, to get out the pool, to dry off and put on a change of clothes, right? The clothes that fit us, right? The clothes that are tailored to us. And so, yeah, I believe that if it was the other way around, that this wouldn't be going on, because we're soulful people. And I just don't believe that that soulfulness, that spiritual nature in us would allow us to do such, even though, and I want to mention this. I know that one of the arguments is that over in Africa, people already, they had slaves. That was something totally different. Study, show yourself a studied person when it comes to speaking about those type of things. Again, follow Joy DeGruy, Dr. Joy DeGruy, because you'll understand chattel slavery was something that the world had never seen like that. And our, like you'll hear even in the Bible when they say, well, in the Bible, they were brown too. Okay. So again, chattel slavery is a different kind of animal. It wasn't the same as what you saw when you're talking about tribal things over in Africa, right? Where one win and then, no, back then it wasn't. So please stop using that argument as well. Educate yourself on those things. Chattel slavery in America was one of the most gruesome things. One of the biggest crimes against humanity that's not even talked about as crimes against humanity. That the modern world has ever seen. So, yeah.
And a good book is stamped from the beginning. Is good. He's a brilliant historian, and that will give you. It's dense, hard to read, but
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So I guess we better wrap it up since we've been. I don't know how long we planned on going, but it's 9:30 now, so
yeah.
we'll have to
So
meet here
we'll
again.
continue the conversations another day.
Yes. Yes, we will. Thank you for this conversation. It's always good to have conversations with you. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing. And thank you all for the comments too.
Yes.
All right. Have a good night. And I will talk to you shortly.